Hey guys, it's Matthew here once again, and before I get into the video, I do think it's important that you guys hear the sounds of the mapping of this type of character with the Warcries, with the Earthshatter, and also a test of the Sunder, so you know what you're in for if you want to try any of this stuff.
Cannot do this yet.
So as you can see and hear, there's plenty of juicy goodness to go around with this type of a build, and Sunder in particular has a real girthy, just slam sound to it, but it's not particularly good in this build. I did try it out plenty throughout the character, and it does clear nicely, but it doesn't have the best single target. I think Sunder's going to be more of a bleed type skill if you really want to use it, but even then it's probably going to be worse than an Earthquake, for example, in the bleed setups as well. That said, this is a full fire, fizz to fire Earthshatter Chieftain. It can double as a Tectonic Slam character, I think, but for the most part Earthshatter is the skill I've chosen, and the skill I think is the best for this current setup. Earthshatter is the new slam skill that was released and that I wanted to play around with since the start of the league. It is just a big slam on the ground, it shoots out 5 spikes in all directions. You can stack up 15 spikes on the ground, and then anytime you slam or Warcry near those spikes, they will explode. So it's a 2-tiered attack, and it is pretty fun to mess around with. It is quite a lot of work, including the Warcries, to play something like this, because there's a lot of kind of setup at times, there's a lot of rotation, there's some clumsiness until you get all the right Warcry nodes, so this definitely will not be for everyone. A lot of people just want to run around and right click, and that's completely fine. This character though needs to press like flasks pretty continuously, as well as like 4 Warcries. Not necessarily that continuously, 2 of the Warcries and also Enduring Cry pretty continuously though. So there's a lot of buttons involved, and it's kind of a rotation. You don't really want to just mash everything at once or whenever you want. You kind of want to go through your Infernal Cry into your Seismic Cry, and then mash your Enduring Cry from time to time, and also Intimidating Cry for bosses. So, like I said, it is a bit of work, and it did take me a bit to warm up to this character. The first maybe 60 levels, I really was not sold on the playstyle. But once I kind of got used to what I was doing, and I took all the Warcry nodes on the tree, I started to kind of enjoy what's happening here, and by this point I'm actually really enjoying the character. He's pretty thick, he's got decent DPS, nothing mind-blowing yet, but he clears maps real well. The single target is probably the biggest problem at the moment, because it is a bit hit or miss with how Earthshatter works, though I'm going to be testing things like Conk Effect to minimize the spread of the shatters and see if that works out better. For the most part, I haven't done any super high tiered content. I've done tier 14s, 15s, map bosses are okay there. I do think that it's going to get a little bit slower when I get to the 16s and the Guardians and all of that, so we'll find out in the next day just how that holds up. But regardless of that, it's been a very fun character to play and map with, and I personally think the whole slam and Warcry system is a bit of a success. Like I said, it's a bit clumsy to get into at first, but in the end, it really does do what grinding gear games wanted to happen, and that is have slower attacks and big two-handed playstyles be more competitive, more satisfying, and more worth playing. And after playing this character, yeah, I totally want to like run around with a slow or a slower weapon, a big stick, slam the ground, and have some big things happen rather than just zoom around really quickly and attack a million miles a second. It's not as satisfying, whereas this, it does make you want to have these big, silly hits. And you don't feel that bad about being a bit slower because it's pretty satisfying and you're still getting things done with the area that you have and the large amount of hits that you do. And then on top of that, it can be a pretty damn tanky character without investing too much, as I'll show you pretty much right now. Here's my current character, level 89, Slammed Uranus. Pretty self-explanatory. The planet Uranus, asteroid, maybe. Slam? Yeah, that's mature. Anyway, it is a Chieftain, and I did post a couple of starter Slam sort of characters for the start of this league, and this is kind of similar, but just a slightly different direction, because I really wanted to, at the same time as testing Slams, test the new Chieftain node, Tafawa's Forest Strength, I think it's called, which is just giving you another sort of attack on top of the attack you're already doing. Don't know if we can actually show you. It has to be near an enemy, right? So it kind of ends up stacking a lot of initial slams. If you use that and Fist of War, then you have more slams, more boosted slams, and if you use a shockwave as well, which we can't at the moment because I'm using an axe, but if you're using a mace, then you're really stacking a lot of like initial hit big slam goodness. In this case, I did end up taking this as my first two passives, and it's pretty noticeable, but by this point where I'm doing a lot of different slams, this thing doesn't seem as impactful and maybe not even that necessary to get. It's in your little toolbar here, and you can see it's got a cooldown time of 2 seconds, so it won't happen more often than every 3 or 4 slams or so. And yeah, I don't know if it's really worth using anymore at this point. So we'll see. But I'm still playing around with it just a little bit. But that's mostly why I wanted to try it Chieftain, just to try that thing out. Aside from that, still pretty good to just go full fire. So we've got 50% fire conversion here, a bit of endurance charge and stuff, and then we've got another 40% fire convert there, and the last 10 coming from gloves. So my Earthshatter skill, sorry, that's Sunder, my Earthshatter skill is completely fire, as you can see here. And like I mentioned, Earthshatter itself works something like this. So that's a Fist of Ward one, which is just a bit chunkier. It leaves all these spikes on the ground, and then if you Warcry again, it will pop those spikes. Likewise, if you Leap Slam or use another Slam skill, it will pop those spikes. So the playstyle and the rotation ends up being more or less press once or twice, Warcry, once or twice, Warcry. But you really want to be keeping up your Infernal Cry and your Seismic Cry throughout your mapping. Your Enduring Cry is a huge survivability bonus, and that's basically the one I mash. So I press R and T for both the other cries, and then run around Enduring Crying until I need to refresh these. And then you got Intimidating Cry as your single target, which just doubles the damage of your exerted attacks. So to sum up, your Infernal Cry is going to make things take more fire damage, and you can also link it up to plenty of other things like Fortify. We've got Pulverize for a bit more, Combustion, and Second Wind. So once that's up and you attack, you do get Fortify up. It does do more damage. It can do Combustion to enemies, but it just makes them take more damage and then deals an extra fucking attack as well. You have your Seismic Cry, which just keeps making your next consecutive attack bigger and bigger, and it ends up having a pretty large hit on the 5th one, so you really want to run this course throughout all of the Warcry. And then Intimidating Cry is just for single target because it gives you a couple of extra attacks of double damage to your main slam. And then, like I said, Enduring Cry, you pretty much mash this whenever you can, because it keeps up your endurance charges, and at the same time, that life regen is colossal. This thing is borderline overpowered at the moment. By next video, you'll probably see that I'm going to be dropping my life flask, because I pretty much don't use this thing. I just don't press it. Not even an instant life flask because I haven't needed it yet. Anytime you press Enduring Cry, it just tops you straight back up to full, and it is pretty damn ridiculous. You can see that my current life regen here is like 500, pretty decent stuff. Pop Enduring Cry and you get 2,000 life a second for a second, 1 to 2 seconds. It's pretty damn OP, and it also reduces your damage taken by a lot. We do have 5 endurance charges up almost all the time, and a Immortal Call on left click, which means that I'm going to be taking a lot less damage, damn near immune, when Immortal Call is up, and then our endurance charges should refill pretty quickly thanks to some of the Warcry nodes on the tree. Fact that we can spam the Warcries, but then we got Volako Storm's Embrace, gain 1 endurance charge every second you've used a Warcry. So thanks to Enduring Cry, thanks to our other Warcries, thanks to this node, endurance charges come and go pretty much all the time, but it also helps us get Immortal Call going. Passive tree is pretty straightforward of just getting all kinds of good slammy goodness and every single Warcry node on the tree. We've got Elemental Overload because we want that 40% more, but that means you do have to cap your accuracy. That also means that you need a little bit of crit somewhere, and as just a base crit weapon, crafted one of these using the new crafting stuff from Harvest. Pretty easy to get a lot of different good fizz weapons, I think. This one's 700 DPS. I think anything over 600 is pretty good stuff and rather easy to get. It's not that important to have the additional crit, but it will make Elemental Overload a lot more reliable. You could otherwise just not do Elemental Overload altogether and just spec into RT, forget accuracy altogether and get a few more extra damage nodes. I think it'll be less damage, but still acceptable and adequate amounts of damage. And then I've also just gone out here and grabbed 1 node for fire exposure, and this is my little leech notable to get leech in the build. As far as the actual links and stuff are concerned, I just grabbed a shitty 6 link, so Crusader Plate, and then put some small life on it because it's really cheap to do this. We have Earthshatter with Fist of War, Inspiration, Elemental Damage with Attacks, Melee Fizz, and Ruthless. I'll probably replace Melee Fizz rather soon with LE Focus and then swap in Conk Effect for single target, but for now this is what I've been running the entire time. We got that Infernal Cry link I've showed you, Leap Slam attached to nothing, Blood and Sand, Intimidating Cry Precision with Herald of Ash over here, Blood Rage, Ancestral War Chief, and Mortal Call and Herald of Purity. The War Chief I only ever use for bosses as a control skill. And then down here we have Enduring Cry, Seismic Cry, Second Wind, and Dash. You can attach Second Wind to all of your cries to get a second round of your, a second charge for all your cries, so you can charge them up twice, and it makes it quite a bit easier to maintain all these things. The gear, pretty straightforward. I went with 1 minus mana cost ring just to make life quite a bit simpler on myself, but I am still using a mana flask, so I haven't dropped that yet. So that maintains my mana for the most part, but I'm still potentially going to be dropping it because with a minus mana cost craft, it does make things a lot easier. The rest, yeah, pretty straightforward. Accuracy, life, get a damage wherever you can get it. And a Lion's Roar, going to use a Wise Oak soon as well. But yeah, there's not much to know when building one of these. Just take all the Warcry nodes, run around, slam some stuff. I think Berserker, the starter I gave you with Impale, should be really good as well. And Bleed Gladiator, really good as well. I think the Slam rework and the Warcry stuff is pretty damn cool and very fun to play at the moment. So I would recommend looking into some of it. Not necessarily this character, but some Slam stuff, some Warcry stuff. At least give it a shot. Make sure you do take as many of the Warcry nodes as you need if you're not feeling it just yet, because all the speed and the cooldown recovery makes things feel quite a bit nicer. So you got to give it a shot and build into it before you completely throw it away. I think that's it though for me. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video in this character, and see you next time.